So apparently it's egg shortage season again, and I still have my unidentified drone decorations up. Hey guys, welcome to the Homestead. So today we're going to talk about all of this egg shortage stuff going around. And this is mostly because a number of states out there have enacted laws and rules that say you can't sell chicken eggs if the chickens were raised in an inhumane environment. And they define that a number of ways. And so right now you've got empty store shelves when it comes to eggs, or eggs are seeing a large increase in prices. And so people who are like homesteaders like us, you and I, well, we have lots of eggs because, we have our own chickens. We have our own food supply. And we're, wheeling and dealing. So it's a fantastic time to be alive and be a homesteader and be a chicken owner. All that to say, there's going to be a lot of people right now in the coming days and weeks and months ahead who are going to be trying to scare you when it comes to this new scamdemic that is on the horizon. And because a person who was 65 years old with existing comorbidities has now passed away in the state of Louisiana because of that cough, cough, flappy, flappy bird, sickness. I gotta be careful. This is after all YouTube. Censorship has run amok. Okay, and so you gotta be careful. There's that thing out there, and it might make everybody sick, and it might kill you. The last one was a scam. This one is also going to be a scam. And I'm going to tell you why in this video, why we are never going to have another real pandemic unless something happens that we sometimes talk about here on this channel. Let me make my case to you. I want to tell you two stories. I've told these stories before on my channel, but it's been a while. So if you're new here, sit down and relax, have a cup of coffee. The first story is about old Ignaz Semmelweis. Old Ignaz Semmelweis, a couple hundred years ago, we didn't understand what germs were and the importance of washing our hands. And he was a doctor, and he ran a couple of maternity wards. And one of those wards was run by midwives, and the other ward was run by and checked in on by medical students. And these medical students, what they would do in the morning is they would work on cadavers, and they would do autopsies on people who had died of disease or natural causes or whatever. But they're working with these cadavers, and who knows what kind of ickiness is there because of how these people died that they're experimenting on. And then they would go and perform their duties in the maternity ward. And the maternity ward, the two maternity wards, one run by midwives, and the other one run by these students. The one run by the students had a 20% death rate. Gee, I wonder why. And so he figures that he looks at this like, what is going on here? And he realizes, okay, these people are playing with dead bodies who have died of disease or whatever, all kinds of who knows what. And then they're going on, they're touching on moms and their private parts when they're having children, and they're dying. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start washing our hands. And he makes up a solution of lye soap, like wood ash and some chlorine and some, whatever. And he makes them wash their hands before they go into this maternity ward. And lo and behold, the death rate drops to almost nothing. Imagine that. So Ignaz Semmelweis, this doctor, I believe it was Hungary in Budapest, I think. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, he starts telling all of his friends, all of his doctor friends, and anyone he can get to listen to him in the medical establishment, in the medical community, we have to wash our hands. We have to clean our hands before we touch people, before we talk to people. And they thought he was absolutely crazy. They threw him in a mental institution, and the people who worked in the mental institution beat him to death. They thought he had lost his mind. They thought he was crazy. And how we treat crazy people back then is obviously we beat them to death. And that's what they did to him. He was dead shortly thereafter after getting in there. They literally killed him. Even his wife thought he was crazy. We know now that he was correct. But do you understand that just a little while ago in the time of history, mere moments ago, just a couple hundred years ago, in the span of history, we didn't know about these things. Today, we know about these things. The other story I'm going to tell you about is a Byzantine Princess. A Byzantine princess who was coming to Venice to marry a prince, and this was an arranged marriage. And at that wedding ceremony in Venice, there was obviously a dinner. They all sat down to dinner, and she pulls out, I think this was back like in the 1200s or something like that, maybe 1100s, I'm not sure. But, almost 1,000 years ago, she pulls out a golden fork in which to use to eat her dinner. She uses a fork. And the cardinal, who was there as a representative of the Catholic Church, was so offended. How dare you eat with a fork? Don't you? And I'm not kidding you. This is literally what he said. God has given us natural forks. They're called fingers. That's what the cardinal from the Catholic Church said. And years later, when she died of a disease, who knows really what it was, she died. The cardinal came out and said, that's what you get when you eat and you commit the sin of eating with a fork. I'm not kidding you. This really happened. It really took place. I also have this book that goes along with that. It's called Cleanliness and Godliness, which goes throughout the history, going all the way back to the Roman times of different issues like this. And the Roman Catholic Church, when indoor plumbing came out, the Roman Catholic Church called indoor plumbing a sin. True story. Because it was, in Christianity back then, it was something, it was righteousness to be dirty. It was righteous. It was piety to be dirty and unclean. It was okay. And the more dirty you were, the more righteous you were in the eyes of some Christian sects back then. Back then, we didn't have running water. Back then, we didn't have easy hot water. We didn't have soap. We didn't have hot showers. We didn't have indoor plumbing. We didn't have trash and waste pickup. Food and meat were sold at open markets, which, by the way, I've been to Paris, and they still have open air markets. And Paris, I went to Paris. I was in the military, and I got to Paris, and I'm like, oh, it's the city that Hollywood has portrayed to me as this beautiful city of love and, all this great things and flowers everywhere and, Pipi Le Pew and right. And it's like you get there and the place stinks. It's like a dump. And it's because of the open air markets. Everything smelled like rotten fish. Tell me I'm wrong in the comments below if you've ever been there. We didn't have healthy eating habits like utensils, like the Byzantine Princess, did. People, looked down upon people when they first started using those things. So times have changed. Most of the real pandemics that have occurred throughout history, were actual, large percentages of people who have died were back before we knew these things. So listen, as long as we still have the ability to do these things and have these things like indoor plumbing and hot showers and soap, and we have, climate controlled grocers where we can find things in nice, neat packaging, we're going to have, and I know there's issues with that. I know that every once in a while there's an E. coli, recall on somebody's salad or something like that. I get that. But for the most part, we live in a pretty clean world compared to what people lived in several hundred years ago, or even a couple hundred years ago, or even 100 years ago. We live in a pretty clean world, and we're not going to get another pandemic unless, and I've mentioned before on this channel many times, we are $36 trillion in debt, ladies and gentlemen. 36 trillion, approaching 37. This is mathematically impossible to avoid a collapse where we're at right now. The cake is baked. And usually when collapses happen throughout history, if you read history, you will know usually that war is followed closely behind that. War usually follows that. When fiats get in over their head and they basically go to nothing like they always do, it has a 100% guarantee throughout history that fiats will fail. Always happens every single time. War usually follows. And when you have times of war and you have times of disaster, you have times of distress, hygiene can sometimes then take a back seat, which is why what kills people more during war is not war itself. It's the disease that follows it, because hygiene takes a back seat. Naturally, people have less opportunities for water and different things, soap, all that stuff. Society breaks down, and hygiene breaks down with it. So, during times of good, what we're living in right now, where we have electricity, we can go to the store, we have gas in our cars, things are okay. Yeah, it's a crazy world. I get it. It's upside down in a lot of ways, for sure. But we still have all these things. We're not going to have another pandemic. I'm not scared of the bird flu. I'm not scared at all. Not one little bit. I think you should be allowed to have chickens. I think you should be allowed to grow your own eggs or raise your own eggs, and get your own eggs from chickens. If there are people in your neighborhood, your HOA, or your city town council who are trying to say, no, you can't have those chickens, you need to get rid of those bureaucrats. I don't care if it takes tar and feathering. It's just what make politicians afraid again. If they're telling you can't grow your own food, they have overstepped their bounds. 100% overstepped their bounds. And it's up to you to put the fear of God back in those bureaucrats. Okay, what do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts below. And no, I'm not scared of the bird flu. I'm not. It's nonsense. The last pandemic had about a 99.8% survival rate if you had no comorbidities. If you had no existing medical conditions, then you were fine. And I think that, I'm not going to get into that conspiracy theory. I'm probably already going to be in trouble with this. What do you think? I'll leave it at that. What do you think? Hey, the video is sponsored by OUPES solar generators. We've been using these for a while now, and they're going to have it coming out with the new Exodus 1200. This is perfect for ham radio communications. I highly suggest getting a hold of one of these units. It has DC power, it has AC power, and it has USB-C and other USB ports on that. And these are all things that radios can be able to use, whether you're using DC mobile units or using AC base units, or whether you're using handhelds that are charged by USB-C. These are fantastic units for your ham radio communications. If the power goes down, the grid goes down, and you want to be able to have some sort of a listening device where you can kind of listen to see what's going on out there, these are great backups for that purpose. And so that's why I promote them. I've been using them for years, and for the last couple of years, and I'm really enjoyed them. And I'm actually giving some of these away or awarding these to my patrons nowadays. So I think that they enjoy them too. I've already given a couple away. I'm going to give a couple more away here soon to my patrons over at patreon.com/An-American-Homestead. Link in the description below. All right, guys. Love you. See you next time in the Homestead. Bye. One of the best perks about living off-grid is that I never pay an electric bill. I love being my own power company, but that means when things go wrong, I have to be the one on call. So I try and use reliable components for my power production. For the last couple of years, I have been promoting OUPES solar generators. I've been using them and abusing them, and as it turns out, they are pretty good products. They have power generators for all occasions, and they can be charged by permanent or portable solar panels, as well as AC power. They offer true lithium iron phosphate batteries, and this is important. Recently, a family in my area had a different brand that uses the less stable nickel manganese cobalt, or NMC type batteries. The unit caught fire in the middle of the night. It was a scary situation, and it caused damage to the home, but thankfully nobody was hurt. The generator, as you can see, was a total loss. This drives home the point on why it's so important to employ solar generators like the OUPES brand that uses the much more safe and stable technology of lithium iron phosphate, otherwise called LiFePO4. They offer small generators for travel or for powering an entire home and everything in between. These are great backups to have in a medical emergency, or to power a freezer full of your favorite meat products, or as I have shown in past videos, for even backup AC and DC power sources for ham radio communications. If the grid goes down, you're going to be thankful you have one of these units. You can find the link in the description of this video, or click on the banner ad found on the front page of our website, AnAmericanHomestead.com. Right here, that banner ad, right there, on AnAmericanHomestead.com. Hey guys, did you know you can become a patron of An American Homestead? They get access to private videos, and we send them gifts from the homestead that we make here on the homestead. And we also enter our patrons into special giveaways that are only available to them. And before you go, please check out these other great videos. Go ahead, click. Oh wait.